talk about what is execution counting, why use it, what are its benefits, its basic use, options in using it, and then using those options, a slightly more advanced use, and the reporting feature of execution counting. So what is execution counting? This is a feature in ZTP-FGI that allows developers to detect which source lines have been executed and also how many times they've been executed. So some tools might allow you to know which lines were executed but not how many times. One of the nice things about execution counting is it will tell you how many times something is being executed. It's a developer-oriented tool. It's made to be easy for individual developers to use to analyze their own code. It allows developers to see the effects of changes they make to their source code based on the number of times things have been executed. And it allows developers to document and communicate the numbers, the counts, to their colleagues, and that's through the reporting feature. So why would you use execution counting? It allows you to see if things are happening as you expect, for one thing. For example, I might have a function that I expect to be called. If I open that up, I might expect this function to be called, but through execution count, I could run execution counting, and one of the things I might notice is this is not being called. It also can detect hotspots in the program. You can see which lines are being executed more than others, and that might lead to all kinds of improvements. It might lead me to analyze my coding efficiency. I might realize I don't need to call something as much. It might lead me to realize I can take something out of a loop to make it more efficient, or I didn't realize it was being called that many times, or I might take a function and make it inline. And although we're using, I should mention, although we're using a C++ example today, it also works for assembler. So when I say function, you might think subroutine, you might things like that. Yeah, another reason you might use it, a thing it does is it allows you to compare before and after changes and document the effects of the changes you've made. This is through the reporting feature. And you can create reports of those effects, of the changes you've made, and communicate them to your colleagues. Some of the benefits of execution counting are that you can find certain errors early. You can detect whether all the lines have been hit that you expect to be hit while you're testing. And then hopefully the big benefit would be producing more efficient, maybe more error-free programs. So what are the basic things you need to do to get ready for execution counting? You need to be connected to a system, and you can see I am here. I'm connected to a system. You need to have the program that you want to analyze to be loaded, which I do over here. I've got a simple test program here, and you need to add the members to source view trace. So that's the first thing I'll do. I'll go over to the load sets view. I don't need this showing here. Go over to the load sets view and select the files that I want to trace, and then say trace in source view. So there they are. You can see from the icons over here, and the way the icons have a little lock symbol up here, that this is ready for source view trace. Now this is a simple test program. I have only 3 sources. This one has a class in it, and it has some other things, but the important thing for us is that eventually it calls run test B, which is here, and run test B ends up calling run test C, and this has a just for purposes of being able to see which lines are executed, it runs a little factorial thing so we can see lines being executed in different counts of them being executed. So once the things are locked in, we can turn on execution counting. So to do that, you can turn on execution counting just for one, or you can turn it on for several, or for all the things that you're tracing. I'm going to turn it on for, I tell you, I'm just going to turn it on for these two here. So I'll multi-select those, and to do that I'm holding down the control key while I click, and then I'll right-click, and I can just, this menu button acts as a toggle, so you can just click that. That would turn on execution counting. When that happens, you see that the icon has changed here. It's become a little more colorful, and up here also it's become a little more colorful. So another way you can know whether something is being executed the subject of execution counting is we open up this bar here where the counts will appear, and this is we call that the execution bar. You can see this source doesn't have it because we're not going to be tracking any numbers on that source. So once I've got those turned on, now this it's a very simple program. I don't even have a transaction to start it. I'm just going to create an ECB for it. Now you probably wouldn't do that. You could use this with async trace, for example. You can set up your async trace. Then once control stops in your program, then you could turn on execution counting at that point if you wanted to. So you can use this with async trace as well, but I'm just starting it this way very simply, and create an ECB. Now we always stop once so you can set up your trace and so forth, but we don't need to set up any trace. We've already set up our execution counting. So what I'm going to do is just run. I don't have any breakpoints set, so it just completes. And what you see is the execution bar is showing the counts, how many times things were executed, different lines were executed. Here, let's see, did I forget to call that? B. Okay. Let me turn on execution counting for this as well. Let me create an ECB for that. Okay, we'll run. Okay, there we go. So you can see now there's colors, and these colors, we color code the lines so you can get a sense at a glance of what lines are hit more often than others, and we call the range of colors that we use a heat map. This particular heat map is, sort of a rainbow of colors. You can change the colors in the heat map by going to the options. So to get to the options, there's different ways to do it. You can right-click on the bar and go to execution counting properties. This will open up the ZTP-FGI options dialog, which you can get two different ways. You could once you open up the ZTP-FGI options dialog, there's a category called Analysis Tools Execution Counting, and that's where the properties are. So the heat map is controlled by this color scale, and the color scale, that's more the rainbow one. You could also choose, for instance, blue to red, yellow to red, and a grayscale. Let me choose this for a moment to show the difference. And it really just depends on what you prefer. You might find this much easier to understand than the rainbow, because you might know, well, what color is coming after another color? And then this, it's pretty clear that red is more intense than yellow, and so you might prefer this encoding. But but I'm going to change it back to rainbow for a minute. And while we're here, let me show the counts. You can see that the lines that are executed more often have the more intense color. You can see that the count is over here. You can see, well, does this make sense? Yes, it does make sense. You would come to your loop and you would execute it, and then you would do what's inside of your loop, and then you would come back to your loop. And the last time you would come through your loop, you would come back up here, and you would see, and it would, the test would fail, and you would fall through. You wouldn't do the the lines within the loop then. So this makes perfect sense that the loop would be executed one more time than what's inside of it. Of course, you don't need to look at that every time you run execution counting, but that's an example of the kind of information execution counting can give you. Does it make sense? Now, and over here we can see in the factorial that well, the loop was the loop was shown in the same type of way. So let me go back to the options and show another option, execution counting properties. You can color the entire line, or you can just color the bar. So you might want to turn off the colors for the entire line because you might find that distracting. It's just really a personal preference. Turn that back on for the demo. I'm going to go back to the rainbow for the demo also. And okay, now, before I go back to the code though, while we're here, there's another more substantive option here, which is automatically clearing the execution counts. So that if I automatically, and let me leave that on for a minute and go back. So if I automatically clear the execution counts, that means that every time I run, like a new transaction or run through my program, I'll get a fresh set of counts. I'll start from 0 again. So to show that, if I create an ECB, now the counts won't change at first, but you see this runs from 1 to 6 in this area, 1 to 6. So the counts over here haven't updated because we haven't finished running through. But if we run through, you'll see that it didn't accumulate the counts. It's just where we were over here when I was pointing out the 1 to 6, but it didn't accumulate the counts. It just started from 0 and added them over again. So we're going to have exactly the same counts here that were called as before. But you may want to accumulate them, if you do, then you can choose to clear the counts manually. And this would allow you to accumulate the counts over multiple runs of your program. So let me go back to the options here, and we'll say, no, let me clear them automatically. Let me clear them manually. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to clear the execution counts. You can clear it for one file, or you can clear it for all the traced members. I'll clear it for all of them. Now if we run, we'll get the counts, and let's see. Let's go to a place where we know we are. Okay, here it's running from 1 to 6. Now if I run through the program again, I haven't cleared the counts. So now we'll add those together. We'll run that to completion. And now you see it's not from 1 to 6, it's 2 and 12 and 10 instead of 5. So why would you do that? Well, you might just want more control of what you're doing. There might be some noise in the program, and maybe you want to run it multiple times, get a total number of counts, and get an average or something. It's really up to you. Some people just prefer to have more control over what's happening. And so clearing the counts manually allows you to do that. Okay, so now we can talk about the reporting feature in execution counting. So the reporting feature, let me bring that up. I'm going to right-click over here. So first, you can say, we've got the data here, but we haven't saved it to a file. It's sort of just in memory. So if we want to save the data to a file, we can say save execution counts. If I do that, and this will just be for the last time I ran, not for those other times where I cleared the counts and everything. And what I mean when I say, the current state of the counts is what I mean. So this would save 2 and 12 and 10 and so forth. So you would choose a file name. You could add a description if you wanted. Let me call this I'll just add a description before changes, and I'll save it. I won't save and export. We'll come back to in a minute. Okay, so I've saved the changes. So I've got those saved to a file. Now, now I can. Let's say I do just want to export and see the data from that one time. So I can go to Manage, Export Data. I've got these other things. This was from earlier testing. I'll just delete these. This is the last one I did. Now you see I've got it selected over here. Over here in the details I can see the name of the file that has the data, what system I was on, the description, the date and time that it happened, and then the members that were and their paths of the that have their information saved in this data file. So to export, I can click the export button. Before I do that, let me show you the options. This drops it down to extends it, so I can say export to Excel format, export to PDF format, and open them in the viewers that are registered on my system for Excel and PDF. So if you have Excel, it would open Excel, for example. And if you have a PDF viewer, it would open that. Open them immediately. So I'm going to say only export to Excel this time and say export. It's asking me to provide a name for the XLSX file. I'll just accept that one. You see it's go. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So it's opened up the report, and I don't have Excel in the system, so it's opened it up in Excel Viewer, which I happen to download from Microsoft. Now what I can see here is it's got a summary page, and on the summary page, you know, it's got the information, some of the information we saw before in the when we were in the other dialog box. It's also showing us the load set it came from, the SO it came from, and the total counts of all the lines within the files. And this, remember, is the this was the 12 and the 10. This was when we had accumulated multiple counts. So now for each member, there is a page that actually shows the source lines. View is very similar to what you were seeing in ZTPFGI, but it's in Excel. And it shows you the counts. And so here's where we were in ZTPFGI. You can see the 2 and the 12 and the 10, for example. And so it shows that. It shows that here. So you have a record of what you did. You can remember. You can give it to somebody else. And so that's the sort of the single file non-comparison report. The really neat feature is when you run it twice and you compare it and you see before and after, and the reports allow you to do that also. So let's do that now. I'm going to close the viewer and close this dialog. We're back here. I'm going to clear the counts because I've got it turned on to clear manually. I'm going to make some changes to my program so that we can see some differences when we report again and do a comparison. So you can see how you might use this. You might have some changes you plan to make. Maybe they're going to, and then you can create you can save the data, run execution counting, save the data. Then you can make the changes that you plan to make, and then run and save the data again, and then compare the data in a report. That's the basic idea. So for one change, we're calling factorial with a 3. Let's call it with a 4. That should produce some changes. Another change we could make is I'm going to just put a little, I've got some source codes I'd saved here just for this example. Just going to put another function in here. Let's pretend we wrote another subroutine or function in the code. I'm just going to copy that out and put it over here, and we're going to call that. And then I'm going to then we need to call that function though. So I'm going to come down here and just find some place to call it. It doesn't matter for this test program. Pretend that it's something we actually need to do. Okay, so that should produce a few changes, right? Now we're going to save this and compile it and load it. And as we do this, this will show you another nice feature of ZTPFGI when you're using execution counting. Because I'm going to load this. We're connected to a system, and this is going to show the Cadillac load feature where we give a lot of help in loading. Now, so we're going to create the load set because I'm reloading this program. But there's these options down here for source view trace. You may use these already quite often when you've got things locked into trace and you want to rebuild and run it again. But none would say after you load the load set, don't lock anything into trace. Select would say after you load the load set, give me a list so I can select which members will be locked into trace. And refresh means relock the things into trace that are already locked into trace. And this means lock all into trace. All the members into trace after the load set is loaded, and do it automatically for you. Well, oops. Okay, I explained too long and it took that away. But let me load it again. There. So I would recommend using refresh if you've got things already locked in and you've already got your execution counting turned on for those things. And refresh is really handy. You can have refresh there. You say OK. Now it's going to do all the things it needs to do to transfer the OLDR file to ZTPF, for example, and then load it into TPF for you and all those things. So now it's loaded, and you can see what it's done is it's relocked the items, and it has put them back into execution counting for you. So that can save a lot of time there if you use that refresh option. So now that we've got this here, we can run again, because remember we've made our code changes. And since we ran it twice before, let's run it twice again to do an even comparison. Okay, can we look through here and see if it seems to be doing the things we expect? Yes, it's calling this function, and it's called it twice. That's what we'd expect. We put the 4 on factorial, and this was a much lower number before. I think now it's 48 because, well, because of the nature of the factorial. So let's save these counts. I could say save execution counts. That would be the right thing to do. Let's say I forget and I go directly to manage export data though. I've forgotten to save my counts, right? Down here is a link that says you have unsaved counts, click here to save. This is a quick way to go back and save. Now I can name it. I can say after changes. I hope this is not too confusing, me showing it to you this way, but what we're doing is we're saving our new set of counts. And I'll say save and export. So now we have 2 data files here. This is the one we saved at first. This is before changes, and this is the one after changes. So I'm going to multi-select these, and to do that I'm holding down, you could hold down the Shift or Control key. Now I have 2 here. What if I had 3? Yeah, it would do 3. It would do 3, I believe. We're only doing 2. So I've got those 2, and the option is to go to Excel format. You can also go to PDF format, and it shows you exactly the same information. I'm not going to do PDF format right now for sake of, it doesn't take very long to export it. Well, I'll show it to you. Do PDF format too, and we'll say export. Now here is the, first it's going to ask us for the name of the Excel file, so we'll save that. Now because we said do PDF2, it's going to ask us for the name of the PDF file. And here's the Excel viewer. I don't have a good PDF viewer on here, and that's why I hesitated to show it to you. I mean, it shows it just fine in the browser, but what you would really want is you would want your little table of contents page over here so you could scroll through and see everything better. I'm going to close this and we'll concentrate on the Excel view for now. So you can see the summary page has changed a little bit. Before we just had a report on one data set. Now we have a report on 2 data sets. We can also see that just viewing here that during the summary level, we can see the number of counts is greater for the second one, which is what we would expect for that file. Total number of hits on those lines. And for the third file, total number of hits on those lines, that's what we would expect also. Now as you go through, now there's more pages here. There's one page for each member or file or program that you had, and that's just exactly the same as before. And so there's one page for the first set of data. It just says set 1, PRG7A CPP, and it has for the second set of data. I mean, this is still the first set of data, the third member. Now here, set 2, it's the second set of data, and we have one for each member, and so that's the individual. Now, but what's cool is when you get to the comparison. So you can do set 1 by set 2, so this is a comparison. And now it's going to show it to us side by side, and we can see changes before and after. So now one thing, and this is the first file, this is where we added the function. And we made another change here too, a couple of other changes here too. So you can see we added some lines. So it actually does a comparison and inserts kind of a null area here. So you can see these lines weren't here before. So it actually adjusts when you add lines like that. And if we go down here, you know, we added a couple of lines to call that function too. And then you can see the differences. You can see there really weren't many differences in counts on this file. If we go over to the third one, here's the factorial, and actually I don't know why these didn't come through. This seems like a mistake. We could check that out, but you can see the 48 and 48. You can see the difference there. So that's a nice feature for the reporting. And in the past we've been asked, is there any limit to size? I've been using very short files or programs. Could you use larger ones? Yes, you could. There's no built-in limit to you know, how many lines you could export into the PDF or the Excel file for the report, for example. And there's no limit here functionally when we're recording the counts for the lines. We can do that. Now if you had a really large program and there were a lot of counts, maybe it would take a little bit longer for the counts to come down or maybe for the report to be built. But that's the only difference I'm aware of. Okay, so that is my my initial demo, Chitra. We could take questions now.
Yes. Is there a limit as to how many programs you could include in this?
No, I don't believe there's a limit. Our debugger guys can let me know if I'm wrong about that.
Hi, Praveen here. Actually, there is a limit. You can trace up to 100 source use programs so that you can actually get till 100 at one step.
Oh, thank you, Praveen.
What is it? What is the limit?
It's 100.
Oh, whether 800 or...
Is there another hand?
Well, it's still me. I'm just wondering. So if it's 100, so then we would need to break it out, right? You know, so if we have like a functionality that goes through several programs, right? Is that, I'm sorry? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The reason is we are limiting to 100 programs for source trace. So that is the same limit for the execution count. So if you are having more, if you want to trace or get the execution count for more than 100 programs, then you need to break the programs. But if you just want the instruction count, then you can use the other options like performance analyzer, T-Rex.
Thank you all for joining the session. Have a good day.